So we're going to start over. Hi everyone. Today we're talking about the climate crisis, shared future, getting the narrative right. And with me, I have a lot of amazing people. But before we start, I will show you a little bit. I'll show you a video for regarding the theme of today for the Catalyzing Change Week.
Welcome to day 2 of Catalyzing Change Week 2025. The future of our planet depends on choices we make today. That's why today we are focusing on planet well-being and water justice, intergenerational innovation, and the future of our cities and livelihoods. In 2024, the damage bill from climate-related events was $1.4 trillion. The projected economic losses due to climate change by 2025 will be over 12.5 trillion. And over 2 billion people will face life-changing risks from climate change. Innovators are finding new ways to protect ecosystems, respond to urgent crises, and secure safe, sustainable access to the world's most vital resource. Today, you will meet climate innovators, water justice advocates, city planners, livelihood creators, and young leaders, working side by side with experienced voices. This is a space to share solutions, learn from best practices, and imagine how communities can thrive in the face of change. Welcome to the session presented by Catalyst Now.
Okay. I'm getting that you cannot see my screen. Can you see it now?
Yes, I can see it now.
Okay.
I can see it. Yes.
Give me a second, and we'll be starting today's session. We have some housekeeping rules that I've already left in the chat regarding how we are expected to behave. If you can keep your video on, show your name and company. You can rename yourself by clicking on your own image and mute when you speak. And if you have any technical difficulties, please raise your hand and ask us. And I hope you enjoy. Today we have an amazing panel that will be moderated by Debrachi K. Ejuba. I'm so sorry. And please let me know how you would like the session to start.
Thank you very much. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Right. So I just want us to start by appreciating everyone who is here and those who will join us as we proceed. You have my profile, so you may just want to just summarize it and play the short video, and then I'll go ahead to introduce the panelists. I hope that by then we'll have Jove and Beatrice on board. Thank you.
So today with us we have Debrachi, who is an advocate for democratic rights and has been as background in policy and governating. Is part of Nigerian is a Nigerian committed to the advancement of democracy, the rule of law, and good governance. He's a social crusader who has continued to promote free, fair, inclusive, violence-free, and credible elections in Nigeria through civil society organizations. He's also the founder and president of Progressive RBA Youth and founding member of the National Voters Drive Coalition, an organization that successfully partnered with the Independent National Electoral Commission to register 74,299 new voters in Abia State in 2022. Debrachi does not believe in the dream of a greater Nigeria and Africa. He works wholeheartedly to make his vision an egalitarian society where elections are free and fair and citizens, especially young people, are empowered to participate in democratic processes a reality. And I will be sharing a video that they requested me to show you today, introducing the panel and introducing better what we will be sharing with you today. If you just give me a second. Denise, could you make me a host too? I accidentally put you solely on you. Okay. Can everyone see it?
Yes, yes, we can see it now.
Hello, my name is Dabereche.
Now going back, this was an amazing video. Thank you so much. I will be now sharing the presentation and starting. Can you see it now?
Yes, please.
I hand it over to Dabretti.
Yes, thank you very, very much. Thank you to everyone who's joined us. Many thanks to the panelists. I can see Dr. Kelechukwu Keziah here in the room. I see Jacob in the room, and thank you, everyone. It's such a very beautiful day here in Nigeria. I know you're having a good time wherever you are joining us today for this conversation. So essentially, we're going to just go into this conversation. We've gone through the first two items. So my job now is to introduce the panelists who are going to be telling us their stories and how they have managed to impact their communities dealing with this huge problem of climate change at a local level. And I give them credit because personally I believe in the power of local action, because it is through local action that will achieve global solutions. Let me start with the introduction now. I'll introduce Dr. Kelechukwu Okezie for him to make his presentation. So Dr. Kelechukwu Okezie is a highly experienced researcher and NGO development professional with over 2 decades of dedicated service in the development sector in Nigeria. As a social entrepreneur, Ashoka Fellow, ANOVA/AROSA Fellow, Dr. Okezie demonstrates deep commitment to creating systemic changes and challenges stereotypes and narratives that limit sustainable development. He believes that communities has contributions to make in addressing the challenges and should be part of the solutions, tapping from their indigenous knowledge and practices. Dr. Okezie is the founder and executive director of the Neighborhood Environment Watch Foundation, the frontline environmental and social justice organization. He is the co-chair of Catalyst Now Africa Chair, and a member of the advisory board of Africa Forward, among many other leadership positions. Ladies and gentlemen, let us make welcome Dr. Okezie as he makes his presentation. Doc, I hope you can hear me. How are you doing?
Well, fine, I can hear you loud and clear. Thank you very much, Kingsley. Thank you, Carolina, and the other members that are here, the participants that are here. Today's topic is going to be quite incisive, and it's going to challenge some of the narratives we have about climate change. And of course, call to action, we at our own level and our African leaders, to what extent they have actually been committed to issues of climate crisis, realizing that we owe the earth as a shared patronymy, as a shared resource, which we need to manage sustainably and transfer to future generations. So oftentimes the narrative, climate crisis, is it a reality? Is it a myth? Or how can we begin to get the narrative right, especially from the perspective of the indigenous Africans? How do we really begin to explain to them this issue of climate change in a manner they really understand and is integral part of them? Most of the times we work with climate impacted communities. You ask them, do you think climate change is real? Do you think it's happening? The answer is always yes. But how do they, translate this experience into reality? To what extent are they building resilience? To what extent can they leverage on the support of their government at the local, community, and national levels? That leaves a gap. Is climate change a novel issue? Is it just something that is happening now? Has it been there over time? How have our ancestors, our progenitors, been able to manage issues of climate change even in times past? These are things we really need to begin to challenge, especially from that African perspective. Can we begin to delink from the Western imposed narratives and bring this issue down to our local climate? So this and many more is what my paper will be looking at. So let's go to the next presentation, the next slide. As we all know, the topic is climate crisis. The first thing is introduction, setting the stage. This is the model that my presentation will take. First is setting the stage, which I have already done by really trying to inspire thinking within us. Is climate change a myth or a reality? Are we really committed to it? To what extent are the indigenous people experiencing it? To how extent have we built their resilience? What are their adaptive capacity? These and many more is what we are going to be looking at. This segment 2, we look at the power of the right narrative. How do we begin to say it the way they understand? They feel it, but they don't understand it. They know it's happening, but they seem harmless. They seem incapacitated. They seem overwhelmed. You know, they seem important. That is it. So how do we begin to change the power of this narrative for them to get it right? And then we will look at stories to system change, how we can bring our people, our government, to really address issues of climate change from the systemic change approach. And of course, finally, will be the closing reflections and call to action. Now, to my first presentation, because at each of these presentations, I will pause so that other panelists will also make their comments. So can we go to the next segment, which is the introduction and setting the stage? Next slide, please. Yes, we live in a time of environmental crisis, no doubt about it. There's issues of food insecurity, malnutrition. We have visited many communities where children have both big bellies as a result of malnutrition. We've been to many communities that have conflict. In fact, I'll be citing Nigeria as a case study, that in many communities in the South and even in the North, there are widespread conflict. There's what we call the farmer-herders conflict. It is almost on daily basis. And this is as a result and been traceable to issues of climate change. And of course, we have some novel diseases that are also climate related. And in Africa, we have reduced lifespan. All these things has its interconnection to issues of climate change, and these are real. Climate change is real, and it affects all, both rich and the poor. So when we talk about climate vulnerability, it's not only to the poor. If there's flooding, it affects movement, it affects our economic activities. Everybody's involved. So issues of climate change is real, and it has impact on everybody. Everybody is vulnerable. And for that reason, everyone should be really committed to take care of our environment, because environmental care reflects our responsibility and relationship with one another and the nature. Let me come down to Nigeria. Climate change manifests in agriculture and food insecurity. Recently, the Nigerian Economic Summit 2023 estimated an annual loss of about 10.5 billion naira in agricultural output. That is to say, climate impact on the agricultural sector makes Nigeria to lose about 10.5 billion naira annually. And again, the Fourth Republic, that is the Nigerian Fourth Republic started in 1999. And it is stated that since 1999 to today, that the farmer-herders crisis, which I have said earlier, has taken a minimum of 19,000 deaths. You see communities that overrun by the herders. The herders want to move to green areas so that they can, feed their cattle. The farmers are saying, no, they are destroying our crops. There's always herder-farmer crisis in Nigeria. You see it in Benue, in some parts of the Southeast. There's daily conflict. The herders say they must feed their cattle, The farmers are saying their cattle are destroying their crops, and there's always a conflict. And it is estimated that between 1999 to 2023, an average of 19,000 deaths has been recorded in Nigeria. You talk more of the trauma and the psychological effect of all this. Now, UNEP projects that Nigeria loses roughly 6 to 30% of its GDP to climate-induced crisis. And that translates to about 100 to 460 billion if the Nigerian government do not take responsible action to, adapt and mitigate the impact. And when I'm talking about Nigeria, Nigeria is the largest country in Africa. And so if such could happen to Nigeria, you can just begin to imagine the gravity in other African countries. So these statistics are horrific. And therefore, climate change is not a thing that we must gloss over. And like I have said, climate change has always been there in geographical times, in geological times. And our people in times past have been able to manage this. But why is it that at this time, its intensity in food crisis, in demographic displacement, in economic and social terms is horrific? Despite the millions of dollars that is being invested in climate, green funds, and the rest of them, nothing is being done to address this. So we really have a lot in our hands that we may begin to challenge some of the Western narratives and begin to look within the African context, Afrocentric solution to this challenge. Because the more we continue to rely on West for support, the more our government continue to become donor dependent, we may not get it right at the grassroots. The next slide, please, before I stop here so that other speakers will also have their own time to talk. Yes, next slide so that I round off and then you invite the next person. Yes, like I have said it, the climate crisis is everywhere. We've talked about the economic impact and social impact. I've also talked about the demographic displacement. From 2022 to 2024, flooding had ravaged many parts of Nigeria. Niger State, Benue State, Borno State, and all the coastal communities have witnessed massive displacement. That today we have environmental refugees, displaced people. These are people that have stayed in a particular place for a long time. But today they are displaced by large volumes of water. And apart from this displacement from flooding, we have other displacement that are also climate-induced. We see today the transition minerals, the lead and the rest of them, are also driving a lot of persons that want to harvest these minerals. And it's leading to conflict in many communities in Nigeria, in Taraba, in Niger. Wherever there is mineral deposit, there are conflicts. And there are widespread environmental degradation and deforestation. So these are all as a result of climate change and man's desire, insatiable appetite to meet its consumption. And it is horrific. We really need to do something. I'll stop here for now until when I'm invited back. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Okeze. Thank you for setting the stage. And this has been a very powerful introduction, I must confess. You did mention some very, very key points, and I have learned a few things from some of the things you've said. Most importantly, talking about the impact of climate change, some of these issues are not discussed as much as they should. You talked about some narratives that some people are pushing out there. These narratives are real, and people are beginning to buy into some of those narratives. But it's important to set the record straight, and that's what you've tried to do with this time. You talked about the Afrocentric solutions that we need to imbibe to solve local climate problems in Africa, and of course, share our solutions with the world. You talk about the social impact of climate change, using Nigeria as a case study, and of course, use some of these statistics to explain the demographic displacement that happens as a result of climate change. Well, while you were talking, we had Masamba Juf join us, and we also had Beatrice also join us. So welcome, Masamba Juf. Are you able to?
Hello,
yeah, I can see you. I can't see you, Beatrice. Can you speak up and turn on your video? Fantastic. Yes. So now we have a full house, and we're gonna get it going. Guns blazing.
Hello.
Everybody giving us their beat and making us understand what they're doing about this problem and how they're developing local solutions that are applicable even to the global community. So let me take a minute to just give us some insight around these very important guests who are going to be talking to us today. So Beatrice holds double master's degree in nutrition and dietetics and public health. She has extensive experience working alongside government institutions and partner organizations on initiatives focused on food security, recycling, and sustainable waste management. She is the CEO of eWomen Sierra Leone and a member and fellow of the African Institute of Public Health Fellows. She is bringing over 15 years of expertise in advocacy, research, gender equality, and community engagement to this conversation. Through her career, Beatrice has collaborated with numerous UN agencies and international organizations, dedicating her efforts to empowering marginalized groups, including women, youth, and persons with disabilities. In 2018, she co-founded the eWomen Sierra Leone movement, a visionary social enterprise committed to addressing critical social issues such as exclusion, youth unemployment, environmental sustainability, and food insecurity. Through innovative, community-driven solutions and advocacy, Beatrice continues to champion empowerment and resilience, and to enhance livelihoods and embrace the shared commitment to environmental and social. Welcome you to this conversation. We also have Masamba Juf, who is a renowned voice in conversations around climate change in the Gambia. He's a founding member and the executive director of the Agency for Development of Women and Children, ADWAC, one of the leading national NGOs in the Gambia, established by Gambians in 1996 to replace Save the Children USA, an international NGO that operated in the Gambia for nearly 14 years, but decided to close its operations in the Gambia. And this is very instructive, especially looking at what Dr. Okeze talked about, how we have to create our own local solutions and not depend on foreign input. His professional career as a development practitioner began as a field worker with Save the Children USA, and he has continued in that light to found several organizations and movements that are focused on adult and early child education, health development, gender and women's rights, sanitation, and hygiene programs. Some other works that he has done has been founding the ADWOC in 1996, being a founding member of the West African Community Development Training Center in 2010, being a member of the National Education for All Campaign Committee in 2000 to 2003, delivered several courses as a part-time lecturer on project planning, monitoring and evaluation, and gender development. And he has also worked across different sectors, including pioneering the use of the eco-zone approach to develop a holistic strategy to meet development needs in communities. So I welcome this very important and highly resourceful individuals to this conversation. So I'll start from you, Masamba Juf. Yeah. Dr. Okeze has given us some background, and he told us some of the things that we are facing as a result of climate change in Nigeria. What would you say in your experience and based on your exposure and the issues you've had to handle in Gambia?
is the most pressing concern around climate change in Gambia? What solutions have you been able to develop, and how can these solutions be applied to other parts of the world?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Moderator. I once again want to say hi to all my colleagues in the panel. Deborah, as you have just rightly mentioned, Gambia, though being one of the smallest countries in mainland Africa, I mean, is one country that is also seriously affected by climate change. Even though our contribution to global warming is almost negligible, virtually, negligible, we are, the Gambia is experiencing a lot of difficulties as it relates to the impact of climate change. Because of that, there have been a lot of homegrown initiatives that have been taken by, people in the Gambia. I mean, of course, with support from various actors in climate change, and to be able to address climate change without necessarily having to always rely on external initiative or external narratives. For instance, some of the key areas narrative that have helped Gambian communities to shift from victims to agents of climate action. I mean, there are several initiatives that have been taken in the country. For example, one of the major and one of the most important initiative is that community ownership initiative, where communities themselves are taking lead and initiatives where many members, community members, are decision makers and managers of project. In the Gambia, communities have initiated local solutions which are tailored to specific needs. For instance, like mangrove restoration, because one of the major impact of climate change in the Gambia is that fish is becoming, increasingly scarce in the Gambia, especially in rural areas, because of the fact that a lot of the mangroves, which used to be the habitat for fish, where fish do breed, is gradually being depleted because of human activities. People are taking initiative to restore, or their initiative restore the mangrove ecosystem, so that fish habitats can be recovered. People have also initiated what you call community managed forest reserves. I mean, these are initiatives that allow communities to take the lead in managing the forest cover that is around their vicinity. I mean, and the way this is carried out is that there is an agreement between the community and government to ensure that communities take full responsibility for ensuring that, one, the forest is protected, number two, to control exploitation, and number three, to also serve an incentive, for communities to be able to continue the momentum of managing those forest areas. Some of the other initiatives taken also include the biosphere protection, where communities are involved in combined activities in preserving terrestrial forests as well as marine resources. Some initiatives have also been taken, like intergenerational dialogue, because in the Gambia, we see climate change as a cross-cutting issue. There is no single particularly institution or organization that has the monopoly to address it. As a result, in the country, we have a slogan we call the future of our children and the survival of our nation. As it relates to climate change, mitigation. And this is being amplified by youth engagement platforms, such as, we have, the Youth Children's National Assembly, where major, advocacy campaigns are handled by young people who are passionate about, environmental, improvement. In addition to that, you also have organized local youth conferences, which are basically forum for young people to discuss about environment and how they can effectively contribute towards addressing it. Recently, young people have also been very active in pushing for the Great Green Wall Initiative, where young people are planting a lot of trees across the country. So that they will be able to contribute, their quota to fighting climate change. We've also been able to use certain initiatives, like using the power of local voices. and cultural influences. For example, in the Gambia, we have a very popular musician, a rapper. We call him ST. And one of his advocacy stand is ensuring that, tree planting. He uses, his music, to advocate for, environmental protection and, climate change initiatives. This helps to translate climate information into culturally relevant messages that resonate with diverse communities across the country, in particular among young people. There is also this initiative of, resilience and adaptation strategy, where through training in climate smart agriculture, for example, in agroforestry, compost making, drought tolerances, and the integration of small ruminants into agricultural system, which yield practical successes, inspire others to adopt new techniques, and shift focus from inevitable loss to the cost to the capacity to adopt and even thrive. Okay, some of the key strategies that we have adopted to integrate women's stories and indigenous knowledge system to shape national and regional climate policies are one. There is a huge campaign to secure land rights for women, especially for women, because one of the major concerns we have in the country is that although women are the main agricultural producers and are also the main natural resource users, women still find it difficult to own land. Which is really causing a serious setback in natural resource management. Secondly, we've also focused on strengthening women's leadership, which includes organizing training programs to build women's capacities for leadership in climate action and governance, ensuring they are not only active beneficiaries, but are also very active contributors in climate action. Again, other dialogues are also facilitated, which we call a whole society dialogue, which move beyond the traditional consultation by employing community-based visual storytelling, which allow communities to set the agenda and also share their experiences in their own voices and words. Okay. Furthermore, we also encourage direct community financing. This is to ensure that, for example, because most of the climate funding that comes into the country usually comes directly to to government, where initiatives done by communities at community level do not have access to those kind of funding. So one of the things we are trying to advocate for and to promote is direct community financing when it comes to climate action, to ensure that climate funding is directly accessible to communities and women's groups to support their self-determined adaptation and mitigation projects. Because sometimes most of the funding that comes are pre-planned projects at the level of the government, and these are projects that are kind of imposed on communities without actually, encouraging that bottom-up, strategy of engagement. In addition, there are also a series of support in capacity building initiatives where, we provide technical training and resources that on one respect and honor indigenous knowledge and skill, but while at the same time building new skills that support intergenerational knowledge transmission, especially among women and among women and youth. Okay, and so
yeah, that's great. So I think you've given us a very good list of the interventions you've done in Gambia, and I must confess, that's a lot. I've heard about what you're doing, and Jacob rightly acknowledges the importance of mangroves and why it is very, very important to protect that ecosystem. So yeah, it's a great job you're doing, and I'm just thinking, this is the importance of this conversation, and this is why I give Catalyst now the credit for creating this platform for this conversation to happen.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot we can learn from each other. The work you are doing in Gambia, I've had to learn a lot about how you're engaging young people intentionally, and to just mention that the fact that you're being intentional about these steps, documenting them and taking note of them, it's an indication of one of the quotes I love so much from Richie Norton, who said, that intentional living is the art of making our own choices before others' choices make us. You know, so you have been intentional about making choices that would improve the situation in Gambia, especially as it relates to climate change, and that is something that each of us, I believe, will learn something from. But, you know, going forward, I just want to look at what is obtainable in Sierra Leone. Having heard the story from the Gambia and Nigeria, Beatrice, can you tell us what the situation looks like in Sierra Leone through your work with e-women? I'm sure you've seen how climate change affects women differently. So what are you doing to shift the narrative from women as victims to women as climate leaders, using yourself as a case study?
I believe Beatrice might be having some connectivity problems.
Okay.
But she's back now.
All right. Are you able to spotlight her so
Yeah.
I can repeat my question?
Yeah.
Hi, Beatrice, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay,
so yeah, great. So thanks for joining us. If you have another device connected, you can just disconnect the audio.
Yeah, that was what I'm trying to do.
Right. Fantastic. So I was asking you, Beatrice, as a woman and someone who has been at the forefront of climate action in Sierra Leone, you've seen how climate change affects women through your work with e-women. So I'm asking, how can we shift the narrative from women as victims of climate change to women as climate leaders, using you as a case study?
Sorry, I'm dangling here with challenges with the network. All right. Again, good afternoon or hello to everybody. It's been an opportunity for me to be part of this discussion today. Start to say, briefly, you've actually just made a brief introduction. Thank you so much. And I think the emphasis here today is basically talking about climate change, which to me is not just an environmental issue, but it's also a human, it's an economic, and also a gender issue that actually requires a shared responsibility by everybody. So if I come to actually pick up from where you actually asked, I think the dominant problem here is about the climate story, which often as a woman or maybe as someone, as a stakeholder within the community, we want to see how best we can actually shift to a narrative of resilience, of that, of innovation, and looking at basically what is it that we can do. At eWomen, we've actually trying to look at local solutions. We also, by so doing, we're looking at solar energy. We're looking at waste to value initiatives, and then sustainable agriculture, which has actually been a key thing in reshaping our communities from within. And when we look at women and youth, which actually women is more or less focused on, we know we're not just looking on the vulnerability of this particular sector, but we also see how best they can play a central role to climate adaptation and leadership. And as a result, in eWomen, we had some key initiatives. We had what we refer to as, for instance, the Eco Trike. The Eco Trike was basically a sustainable component that we look in a way that we used to actually use in the area of the waste management. These are all local materials that actually been used in essence to absorb the waste that is within our community or within our society. So we use the eco tribe. We also use a community-driven innovation that can also reduce carbon footprints, creates green jobs, and also inspire climate-conscious businesses. And as a result, we continue to advocate for policies and investment frameworks that simplify grassroots climate solutions instead of imposing external models. We've been also working in empowering women as
Looks like Beatrice is having some network challenge. Well, great work you're doing in Sierra Leone, empowering women and youth and creating local solutions in your community. I've gotten great value from this conversation, and really, the take home for me so far is that we find local solutions to those problems. We have a few minutes to wrap up this conversation, but I just want to get your thoughts. Dr. Okeze, are you still with us?
I'm with you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Let me continue. The next aspect of this conversation is the shared value, because the future belongs to all of us. We need to begin to send the narrative, the right narrative, use the power of the right narrative, because my concern is that every day we talk about issues of climate change. We talk about those big words: resilience, mitigation, adaptation, climate smart agriculture, and the rest of them, good works. There are fundings that are dedicated to climate issues. To what extent does it get to the grassroots? To what extent are those at the grassroots in tune with the changes in our society? For us to have this mindset shift and have that behavioral shift, and people at the grassroots to begin to understand and build their resilience, we need to begin to send out the messages using the right narratives. Because one, living in harmony with the environment is a pathway for future generation. And it's something that we can do today. How can we begin to send out the right narratives? And this can be done through four processes which I have identified. The first is what I called the cosmological, cosmogenic, and worldview memory. We need to bring this issue down to the people. You know, in ancient African context, they try to mimic what is happening around them, and they capture them in imageries, in storytelling, in moonlight tales. And these things get ingrained in the memory of children, and they grow up with this, aligned with nature, aligned with what is the reality. But this is a disconnect that we have not really tried to ensure that the present generation have that connection with the reality of climate change. And this cosmological, cosmogenic, and worldview memory could be done through drawings, through storytelling, and ecological practices. This can be done. We can also use what we call ecological climate memory to document ecological transformation. Things have been changing through time. How our community were 10 years ago and what is it today? Can we begin? Hello, I hope I'm still being heard.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Am I heard?
Yes, 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 we can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Okay. I don't know if I'm being heard. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you. Yes, please.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. To set the narratives right and get our people prepared for these climate issues, we need to send out the right narrative so that it becomes ingrained within themselves. And this could be done through storytelling, drawings, and through documentaries. Are these things being done today? The government isn't interested in getting the money, and they're telling the people, build resilience of the host of the communities, give them improved seedlings. That is not addressing food insecurity. Absolutely. That is not addressing the migration. That is not addressing even climate mitigation. Today, our agricultural practices is such that jeopardizes our environment. But in Africa in olden days, they have selected areas, revered areas, and they give some religious connotation to such areas. They call them groves, sacred areas, religious centers. Inasmuch as we may not understand the mindset, those practices had the connotation of environmental preservation. Because those light trees within the mangroves, for instance, are all the areas also where they site their religious centers. And the stories around them that the spirits live there makes people to be afraid not to go there to destroy the ecosystem and its rich diversity. So they have that. Today, the mindset has been distorted. In our rapid and greedy desire for exploitation, we have destroyed our ecosystem and the biodiversity and its rich biodiversity. So we need to begin to create that relationship and mindset within the growing generation through linking them with what was in the past and what is in the present and the danger of the future. By this, consciously, they will now take stock of the environment and consciously protect them. And that is a sure way than all this money, a lot of money that is being invested and which the politicians in Africa now divert for their corrupt practices. Another thing we can do is what I call topographic memory and place naming. We need generations of visual inheritance that is tied to place names. We can begin to also give names and places to such areas that in the past held the people together. In Africa, in those days, the mahogany, for instance, is a tree that is well revered, and and it becomes a habitation for a large ecosystem. But today, such things are not being practiced. We really need to begin to get the narratives right. And finally, we also need this, what I call ecological and cultural calendars, which could be documented. Today, we don't know when the rains start. We depend on the meteorological agencies to give their predictions. But recall that in times past, our ancestors were able to make projections, ecological and the meteorological predictions that are nature-based, and that helped them in their agricultural practices. So today, we also need to begin to map our cultural calendars and make it in such a way that the present generations understand them. Indigenous people's deep knowledge of nature management could be expressed in cultural ecological calendar that connects the rhythms of the cosmos with human activities. our daily life and rituals. And through this calendar, we renew the spiritual force that helps to guide the young, maintain our health, and preserve the earth, because we know that everything we do has that interconnectedness of all life, where we must be intentional in exploiting the earth's natural resources. And above all, the power of narrative is the power of justice. We need to begin to pursue justice for people who are vulnerable and for our planet. And of course, we need to care for creation. Caring for creation is an act of love. And when we fail to care for creation and care for nature, that is why we have lots of conflict, because people now do not connect with nature. And since they cannot connect with nature, they cannot connect with humanity. And that is why we have a lot of crises all over. And above all, we need to get our government to be involved. Climate financing should be well mapped out, strategically invested, and given to people at the grassroots so that they can build an African-based resilience, not a Western-based narrative that does not build resilience nor adaptation. Thank you very much.
I believe the Dabaretti lost connection. I believe you, Doctor, you went over most of the topics of your presentation. I don't know if you'd like to make a call to action towards the attendees.
Masamba is still around. He can take before I now make my call to action. Masamba is still around. And Beatrice as well. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, Doctor, I just want to corroborate what you have just, mentioned. Like I said in my presentation, I think one of the major issues that is a challenge for climate action in my country is the fact that, I mean, climate financing usually come direct to government, and they decide, I mean, what projects and, how they spend that money, without necessarily having to engage local communities that are most affected by all the negative impact of climate change. I mean, when it comes to food insecurity, when it comes to flood, when it comes to extreme weather condition, when it comes to food insecurity, I mean, it is the average local person, the woman in the village, the disabled in the village, the young and the old in the village are the ones who are affected directly by the climate change impact. But what we have is here a situation where funding is acquired through bilateral organization direct to government, and then projects are implemented based on what the technocrats have agreed or decided on. So some of the things I would definitely want to recommend, and I would want us to take away from this meeting, is that, I mean, we need to be able to empower the local people to tell their own stories. I mean, so that they will be able to influence the decisions when it comes to issues that affect them, especially as it relates to climate, to climate change. And I think we also need to be able to use a lot of to leverage social media platforms, so that we will be able to bring out the stories of people directly impacted by climate change, to the highest level of decision making, so that whatever climate financing is being contracted by government. I mean, these are the voices of those that are most affected are heard and incorporated in such in such projects. To also encourage open dialogue, that is creating safe and inclusive space where, I mean, it's not only the technocrats that sit and determine what climate projects are to be initiated, but I mean, this should be an open dialogue between between the technocrats, the people that are impacted, the various interest groups, to ensure that I mean, we have a more holistic approach to addressing, climate issues rather than having, a one-way solution usually imposed from top to bottom. Sorry. And finally, I think I would also recommend that, there is the need for partnership with local organizations and leaders. I mean, collaborating with local NGOs, for example, and community leaders, as well as educational institutions to broaden and ensure cultural sensitivity and accuracy when it comes to, climate change actions that may impact the lives of the average, people at community level. And when we are, one of the things I would just also like to stress is that, I mean, for us to be able to bring out the stories of communities, indigenous people that are affected mostly by climate change, I mean, we need to focus on real and empathic stories. I mean, using real life scenarios and personal experiences from community members, because when they narrate their daily experiences and struggle, I mean, this is one effective way to build a sense of shared humanity that transcends both geographical and cultural divides. So I think, I would want to conclude, by saying that some of the effective practical strategies that we can use to connect local realities to global conversations should include the ability to understand and share feelings of people through authentic and personal narratives, using digital platforms, Facebook, Twitter, etc., for wider reach and interaction, as well as engaging community members as storytellers to narrate their own stories and their own experiences. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. I've had some network challenge here that affected my participation, but thank you very much, everyone. It's been an amazing conversation. I wouldn't know, Katrina, have we had anyone from the audience ask questions? I can see Fumilayo Sebu here. I can see Wasum Lucy. Thank you for joining us. I can see Simeon Abba. Have we gotten any questions from the audience?
There's a question in the chat. I don't know if you can read it. I can read it out loud if it would help.
I'm not sure. Okay, that's the question from Simeon. I think I can see that. Thank you for communicating the works you're all doing. What country anywhere in the world is best, in your opinion, on managing climate change? Example, funding, community engagement, and local initiatives. Who would want to go for that? What country, in your opinion, is the best in managing climate change? Masama Diop, if you wanna give that a try?
Yeah, I just want to give it a try. Although, I mean, I wouldn't really be, able to talk about funding. I mean, because this is kind of beyond my own organization. But I know, I mean, I just want to give him some example of potential funding sources that might be relevant, for him. And these are funding sources that are very, that fund basically their main goal is support climate change initiatives across the world. And you have one funding agency like the Global Environment Facility, which is GEF. I mean, you also have the the climate change fund, which is the GCF. These are major climate change.
I'm not sure you got the question, Juve. Simeon is asking, in your opinion, or based on your rating, what country in the world is best in terms of managing climate change? Like, maybe according to your rating, you want to say, oh, Gambia is the best in this regard, or Australia, or whatever country.
No, yeah, because I saw in his question, he's saying change, climate change example funding. So I was just saying that we cannot, I cannot say much about funding. Yeah, that's why I was explaining some of the potential funding sources that the individual can have access to. But I would also like to say, based on our experience, I mean, I think Gambia has been recognized as one country, I mean, which is doing a lot in terms of climate change activities, in terms of community engagement and local initiative, like I mentioned earlier on, where I mean we have a lot of community engagement when it comes to climate change issues, as well as some of the local initiatives I have just mentioned earlier on, like, mangrove restoration, community forest management, biosphere reserve management and stuff like that. So yes, I wouldn't say the Gambia is the best, but I can tell you Gambia is doing a lot in that aspect.
And that is you being very patriotic there. I like that.
Yes. I want to make a contribution to that. It's very hard to pinpoint to any particular country, exactly, because in assessing the best country, there should be some metrics that should be used. So I've never seen any country that met all the metrics. But then in Western narrative, some countries like Denmark, Sweden, Norway, from the Western perspective, can be said that they have really been one of the countries that are managing issues of climate. But then in Africa, we also have some best models. I just came back from Rwanda, which experienced the genocide about 32 years ago. And it is interesting to note that in Rwanda, they have policies that safeguard the environment. And there are days that are dedicated for car-free movements. The vehicles you have to trek. You don't use plastics. Rather they encourage recyclable materials. So such is a model in Africa, but then there are very few. But that is why we really need to begin to push the narrative. In ancient times, our people were conscious of the environment, and that is why they managed the environment in a sustainable manner. Their appetite for consumption was such that they have consideration for others, and that is why they live in nucleated settlements, so that there are areas that are left for agricultural purposes, and they have the mangroves that they secure, the sacred groves and the rest of them. So Africa before colonization had best management of the environment. And that is why we advocated that we need to go back to our roots.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We need to go back to our roots. And again, I just would like to add that the contexts are different, even if you want to do the comparison. Yeah. What those in the West are facing is different from what we're facing in Africa, and everyone is making good effort to fix the challenges that they are facing. And I want to also encourage you, Simeon, to play your own part, even in your own local community, to solve the problems that you are facing, because at the end of the day, it is our collective efforts that will help us to build a world where climate consciousness and environmental sustainability are key. So I think I will just invite you, Masamba Juve and Dr. Kelechi Okezie, if you want to say your final words, or more or less like, because one of the things that we want to take out of this conversation is a charge, a sort of direction for participants to really key into this climate change management concept that we're trying to project, and do their own part in their local communities without just leaving everything out. And like you keep saying, exploiting the environment, even against the interest of the future generations. So what would be your final comment, Dr. Okezie, and then we'll go to Masamba Juve, and I'll hand the mic back over to Catalina.
Thank you very much. My final word is linked to the call for action. As we are in this Catalyst Change Week, let it be a time for us to reflect how the choices we make has really impacted the environment. And we also need to act with consistency, for issues that promote sustainable environment, and engage others, especially at the grassroots level. And above all, we must begin to embrace collaboration against competition in Africa. Let us identify best practices, no matter in which indigenous communities, and see how we can begin to, mimic or reproduce or repackage it. Let's begin to tell our own African stories. African story of climate change, African story of adaptation and resilience. Let us also, let's bring all our governments to take action, because whether we accept it or not, climate change is real and it is affecting all of us. We need to develop exercises to regenerate, revitalize, and recenter the ancestral values of caring and protecting our environment and our earth. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that charge. And Masamba Diouf, you want to add your voice to what Doc has just said?
Yeah, I just want to, to say that climate change is the business of all, and we need to create that collective effort. To fight against it, because no matter which part of the world you are, no matter what your status or level is in society, climate change is real, and it affects and impacts all of us. So it is everyone's business to contribute your own quota. Whether it is by ensuring that, you don't fell trees, or by ensuring that, you only utilize recyclable materials so as to avoid pollution, and the like, or whether it is about, interpersonal discussions and advocacy work to ensure that everybody buys in, into the climate action. So, like I said, it is everyone's business, and we all must put hands on deck to contribute our own quota in addressing climate change, impact. Thank you.
Indeed, climate change is everyone's business, and we all have to have all hands on deck to solve these problems and help us move our society forward. Beatrice, can you give us your final words as we wrap up?
Yes, let me just give a wrap up. Sorry again, I've been on and off. But just some few things I would actually want to add in. That one thing we should all be aware of, that is, we should all see women as frontline actors, both in agriculture and waste management, and our best looking into community resilience. And we should also look at a call for investment in women-led startups, climate startups more especially, and then education for girls in green technology fields. To me, I see it as very, very important. And then if we also, if I should also add in, I want to look at a component wherein we can actually have a digital generation that could be seen as problem solvers, not just as passive observers, more especially when you talk about our youth. And then for women, let's showcase women's approach to training young innovators to design climate smart solutions, such as solar technologies, recycling innovations, and agri-tech. And then I want to stress that we should have a climate justice, which can also include access to innovation, tools, or data, whatever it is. And then my emphasis here today was also going to look to build in a shared feature, in the sense that somebody was actually asking which country, but to me, I look at it that no nation or gender can actually win alone in this fight for the climate struggle, but rather we should encourage partnerships between public, private, and then community sectors for an inclusive climate resilience. We should call for solidarity among African innovators and policymakers to drive a unified climate message. We don't want to see ourselves wasting up time, but we also want to see ourselves acting. And I think the action should be now. If I should actually end up, I want to me, most times in my discussions with people, I said, there is hope. Though like the hope, it's an urgency. It's in an urgency stage. The climate crisis is real. but so is our power to transform it if actually we get the narrative right. We can turn things around. We can turn this crisis into a greatest opportunity. And therefore, innovation and inclusion should be a shared prosperity for us all. And we should ensure we include. Women are key frontliners. For Sierra Leone, for instance, there have been a lot of initiatives that we've actually been engaged and see women. We see the VSLA as also be playing as a critical thing. What can we all do? What can we work towards to ensure we have a common African goal? And together, I think this could be something tomorrow we can all sit on a table platform to say, yes, we had it, we started it, and today here we are. I want to use the opportunity to thank everybody. I know we keep on going on with the discussions, and I know we'll get there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. It's been a very beautiful conversation, and thank you, our great panelists, Dr. Okezie, Masamba Juve, and Beatrice Corona. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation, and I've taken note of most of the things you've said from Dr. Kelechi Okezie. Let me confess that I learned a new term from you today. You talked about cosmological, cosmogenic, and worldview memories. That's a term that I'm going to go home with, and of course do more research on that. I mean, thank you for bringing that to your insights to bear. Masamba Juve, thank you for talking about what you do in the Gambia and how young people are using different approaches and their innovative skills, using music and the likes to plant trees and encourage people to take action, to preserve our environment. And Beatrice, thank you for reminding us that women should be seen as frontline actors and supported to lead innovations, whether in the area of solar panel generation or solar light production, or any other area they choose to operate to help us preserve our environment. It's been a fantastic conversation. I'm sure our participants have gotten great value from every panelist on this call. So I believe change doesn't happen by chance. It happens when we act with purpose.
Yeah.
Do the closing festivities and call it. God bless you.
Thank you.
Before we go, I would just like to leave a final call to action to join Catalyst Now Network if you're not already a member. Also, we have a very long list of ecosystem partners: the Skull Foundation, the Schwab Foundation, Echoing Green, One Family Foundation, and the Ashoka Foundation, as well as many partners and supporters that have been making the Catalyzing Change Week possible. And if you'd like to join our journey towards collaboration and collaborative work towards many teams that some of them have been mentioned here today, please feel free to reach out to us. We also have multiple social media platforms like Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and to keep updated with our activities, there's a newsletter and our website. And thank you so much for all of this amazing information that was shared with us today. Thank you to all the panelists. It was very great and amazing to hear your knowledge, your insights, and what you have been doing in each of your countries. And thank you so much for being present with us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Talking to all of you. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. It's a good opportunity having you all and learning moment for us all. Thank you. And we share into other sessions. Bye.
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 Yeah.